to the final night of our Running on Full Power seminar. It has been a joy to spend these past days together, exploring how to unlock greater vitality, clarity, strength, and purpose in our lives. If you are joining us for the first time tonight, we warmly welcome you. We are glad you are here. This evening we conclude with a powerful and deeply relevant topic, science of willpower. We are grateful to once again welcome Dr. Ernest J. Through these clear explanations, scientific insights, and practical strategies. Dr. Brake has helped us understand what it truly means to live at full power, physically, mentally, and spiritually. Thank you for taking this journey with us. We hope tonight we will both opening eye and empowering. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Dr. Ernest J. Brake.
Well, thank you, Pastor. He's so nice. How are y'all doing tonight? So, are you running on full power? Okay, do you want to run on full power? Yeah, me too, right? And so, what? Yes, you got it. You got it. Well, let's take a look now, see if we can get our things going. Okay, I want to pray first before I do that, but I'm going to ask you the question, what did we learn so far? So a little bit of notes that you can share, especially for those who weren't here yet, then you can kind of teach them what they missed. And so before we do that, let's pray. Our Father in heaven, Lord, we just call upon you right now tonight to speak to us, to inspire us, to take at least one thing home with us tonight that we can apply in our lives so we can indeed have the privilege that you give us to run on full power. So Lord, be with us, be with me, and help me, Lord, to be, in a sense, out of your way so you can speak to your creation, your people, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. So the question is, yes, what did we learn last session? Just raise your hand and say, yeah, here's something I got. Bobby. Aha, she's saying whole foods, plant-based. Yeah, if you're going to look up stuff in the internet, don't bother looking up vegan or vegetarian. I mean, that's fine. But really, whole foods, plant-based, WFPB, whole foods, plant-based, will get you a higher level of fuel for your organic machinery. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please. Yes. Yeah, Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. So she downloaded the app. Just go to the App Store and look up Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. And you downloaded that already. How does it look? It looks encouraging. Yeah, he's got a way of putting it all together. I mean, he's got all the science. He's probably the most knowledgeable person, I'm thinking, on all the science and research that's out there. And he put it all into one app. And just gets you to eat this, you check it off, eat that, make sure you get your greens, your beans, your berries, and stuff like that. Yeah, good. I'm glad you did that. Yes, please. 5 blue zones. Yes, you get extra points if you can identify one of them. Where? Greece. You get a point for that. I'm not sure what you're going to do with that point, but you get a point for that. Anyone else? What else did you learn? How about, yes, please? Yes. He does. Right. Do you have that cookbook? All right, she's got Dr. Greger's cookbook, How Not to Die cookbook. So borrow it from her. She's very generous. Actually, I have no idea. I'm just volunteering you, that's all. But yeah, so I have not seen the cookbook except online, and I hear it's good. Yeah, okay, very good. Anyone else? Anyone else? Very good. Then maybe it's time that we just continue on. Let me see now, I get this all pressed properly. Back. Elijah, I might need you. What a guy, so helpful. I told Elijah, I think he has working now, that I think he has a gift of service and a gift of helps among whatever other gifts that he has. So I want to go backwards now, Elijah, if I can just go back. Yeah, that's it right there. So this is one of the things that we talked about last night, is the guiding question is, if you're dealing with, okay, what food should I eat? Is this good for me? Is that good for me? Or, is that a little bit? Just ask this question and then go from that as your guide. Okay, is this possible food I'm going to eat? Did it grow on a bush or a tree or a garden or an orchard? If it didn't, then it's not a plus 10. I'd be a plus 7 or plus 4 or a minus something. Here's a good example. You got yourself a bag of potato chips in front of you, and you take out a potato chip, and you say, where did this grow? And what's the answer? It didn't grow anywhere. It was manufactured somewhere, and they extracted something from a potato which did grow, but if you extract it from nature, it's no longer natural. And so that's just an idea there. But you see a bowl of blueberries. The blueberries, they grew on a bush, right? Apples grow on a tree, carrots grow in the ground. And so if it grows that way, then God put that in there for us to use. Yeah, go with that one. All right, next one, let me see. Here we are. So I said that I'd bring some books tonight, and I did bring some books. I brought 30 with me from the island. Somebody, okay, it was Dragan, grabbed one, and so I now have 29 back there. And so on Amazon, you pay $26 plus tax plus shipping. It might be about $34 or so. And you can do anyone, you can do that anytime. But if you get it from here, I just want 25. So 25 should do it. It's right here. And I was talking to somebody who said that this book is actually worth like $42 or something. It's just, everything is packed into it. It's not just a health book. It's a personal growth book and a health book, plus an implementation guide too. Because part 1 is about the full, F-U-L-L. Part 2 is about the power, and part 3 is about implementing full power. So it kind of all goes together. Now then, the workbook takes stuff out of the book and like all the end of chapter checklists, like the habits. There's 10 habits for every principle. It's a lot of habits. I mean, you can't do them all, really. I mean, but you put them all in there because that's what the science says is the best. And so they're all here. And so you can measure yourself. You can ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing? And so you can add it all up here. And then there's places in the workbook, there are blank pages. So that's when you read the chapter in the book and you fill in the blank page here to say, here's what I'm going to do, or here's some notes I want to keep in mind. So I use the workbook when I'm doing a running on full power program that lasts for over a week, maybe 2 weeks, and I'll say, everybody turn to page 15, and stuff like that. But I didn't do that here because I'm only here for a short time. So they're back there, and is Bronca going to be the one to see? And then Bobby, you'll be taking a list. Okay. All right, so Bobby's working with Bronca. And she's got a list, so talk to her, talk to Bronca. I don't know what you're going to do. But if you want to get a book from me, it's $25. But there are people who want to get a book, and they're not here. And so all I can do is leave some books here, and I go home on faith that somehow someone will pay for that. So it may be the church, I don't know. I know you have to talk to your church board and everything else. So we'll see how that goes. But I want you to have that. I was just talking to your pastor, and I was in not too far from Victoria a couple of weeks ago, and about a month ago now. And I just got a call from a church member in that church. It's the Souk Church, Wanda Fuka Souk Church, just outside of Victoria. And the lady came to a weekend program that we did there, Running on Full Power. And she is a guest, and she is a member of a TOPS group. TOPS stands for Taking Off Pounds Sensibly, TOPS. And that group rents a room from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And the lady came to the program in the Seventh-day Adventist Church that I was sharing, like I'm doing with you. And she liked the book so much, she's actually lecturing from the book to her health class. And she just started last week. And so she saw some value in that. So I just want to share that with you. When I get told that, I say, oh, I actually feel useful. And that's what I want to do. I want to feel useful. I want to take whatever gifts God gives me and use it. And I'm thinking that's what you want to do too. Because God gave you all spiritual gifts and talents. And when you use them, it results in fulfillment and a sense of satisfaction in life. So I'm glad for that. Are there any questions on that, by the way? Any questions? Okay, is that understandable? All right. So Elijah, I'm not able to click that button, so if you can help me. Okay, this is inside the book, the table of contents, and press the button again. And here is the thing we talked a little bit about on Thursday night. Press the button again. And then here's what we talked about on Friday night. Prioritize high-octane fuel. Press the button again. And then this morning, it was from the chapter in the book called Unleash. I did say at first, unleash your spirituality. But I realized I needed to say unleash healthy spirituality because there's a difference between healthy and toxic. And then press the button again. And then tonight we'll touch on chapter 7 and chapter 8 in the book called Omit What is Harmful. This is the hardest one to deal with. This is the one that I had a hard time to deal with. I could not write the book until I dealt with this. Because anyone can write a book on, eat this, eat that, that's good for you, get your sleep, get your exercise. Anybody can write a book on that. But how are they doing it? And then why wasn't I had to analyze myself. And that took a couple of years. I'll share a little story on that. And so until I got that kind of completed in my own life, I couldn't write the book. And so it's been published now about a year, so it's done now. So I guess when I'm going through the program, go ahead, press, see homework here, and I see homework here. Okay, good. I usually give out homework, like I would say, tonight is the night that you go to your workbook and turn to page 16 and fill out the habit tracker. And you answer your questions, 10 questions. And then on a scale of 1 to 10, here I am. So you get 7, and 4, then 2, then 10, then 8. You add it all up out of 100 and see what you get. And then that's one habit tracker. Well, there's 9 of them. So that's a lot of habits to see how you're doing on, right? And so you add them all up, all 9, and then you get a final score. And that's your performance score. And that's what you're doing. Before that, you take the vitality assessment. That's how you feel. So you see how you feel, like taking your pulse type of thing. 25 questions, how you feel. And then you change how you feel by changing what you do. And this is lifestyle medicine. And then after you change what you do, you measure how you feel again to see what the difference is. And that's science. That's science. You do an intervention on yourself to see if it makes a difference on your weight, on your sense of confidence, on your blood pressure, on all the other things that you can measure, so many things. So does that make sense? All right, so we'll go for that. And then that's the census example of the workbook there. And see if I can press the button. So are you ready to take a next step in your life? I don't know what it's going to be, but it's between you and God. What's the next step for you? And the book or the workbook could help give you some possibilities. Oh, I should do that one. I already got that one down pat, but this one I might need to do. So we can go there. In part 3 of the book, after you read the part 1 and 2, which is the major part of it, and usually part 3 people don't read too much because it has to do with actually doing it. People seem to like to learn things. but not do them. And that's okay. That's okay. But part 3, if you want to do it, part 3 is there. And part 3 talks about plan A, B, C, and D. And plan A is basically like as an option. Just be casual about it. As you go along reading something, you hear something, you say, you know what, I need to do that. And it's casual, it's not structured. You just pick something to do and you do it. Like making sure you get enough water for the day. Making sure you get to bed at a certain time and not have electronics before bed. Or make sure you have like 4 vegetables in a day. And those are habits. So you can pick one. So that's the casual approach. Then you have standard 1 and standard 2. This is what I would suggest to actually do for the program, where you take the 9 principles, and we'll repeat them again, and you take 1 habit from each principle. There's 10, you can take 1. So you start on a particular day of the month. When my wife and I did this some years ago, we started May 1st. And then we counted and we measured. And we chose, we're going to do this habit out of this principle and this habit out of the other principle. And we ended up with 9 habits that we wanted to deal with. You do it whatever way you want to do it. Sometimes it's good to do 2 or 3 habits. You can probably do more than 1. I'm talking about habit changes, actually, behavior changes. To do 90 all at once, how many think you can change 90 things in one day? Probably not. But you know what? Okay, 1 person. That's pretty good. I'm glad for that. You know what? The people who are highly motivated, even desperate, because they just got told by their doctor they have 1 year to live. And they're desperate. And they take the time and they commit. That is the advanced, intense plan. That is the plan that will get you the most results the quickest. That's kind of what the CHIP program was like. Or you go to the Silver Hills for 2 weeks and you've switched your life over completely. All right, that would be that plan. It's kind of the ideal way to live, but most of us aren't living anywhere near that. And so we need to small steps toward that. So it's up to you what steps you take, and the book will give you some ideas. Does that make sense? By the way, the LM, what does that stand for? Lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine. So the advanced is intense lifestyle medicine therapy. So, and I would love to be able to do that by taking you to a retreat for 2 weeks. And we feed you, and we measure you. We bring in doctors, and we go for 2 walks a day in the mountains, and we give lectures at nighttime, and we give you massages and all that kind of stuff, which we've done in the past. And then after 2 weeks, you are ready to go. I went to Silver Hills they had a 21-day program at the time, years ago. And my wife and I went, and we were exhausted. We had just come from Newfoundland at the time. I had just run a camp meeting and Pathfinder program and stuff. Had 9 meetings every day with the children and stuff. So we were exhausted. We get there, we go through the program, and we come back 1 month later, back to Newfoundland where we lived, and I was a pastor and she was a teacher. And people said to us, we don't even recognize who you are. You look so much better and so much different, so much healthier. You're glowing. That's what the health message can do, especially when you do the intense changing. That's what we did there that time. Anyway, I don't recommend it for everybody. You know why? Because in your attempts to do it, you can sometimes fail and you get all discouraged and you give it all up. I don't want to give up that. So you go at the rate that you need to go at when it comes to changing things. So we're talking about what is harmful here. It's what Mother Nature ordered. Even Daniel had the same thing in Daniel chapter 1. He had an opportunity to eat high-fat food and unclean food and expensive food, and he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And it made a difference in his life. And he ended up getting promotions because he was so smart and so fit and everything else. That's a really kind of cool scientific trial, first said in the Bible, 2,500 years ago. It's just amazing. And now we're doing that kind of same science today. And so here's the summary of it all. Fulfill your purpose. The F stands for find your superpower so you can fulfill your purpose. So that's the F. I'll talk more about that in a bit. The U stands for, okay, Elijah, need your help. Go ahead, yes. Unleash positive spirituality or healthy spirituality. Keep on pressing the buttons, Elijah. Lovify your life is the L. Launch your plan. Prioritize high-octane food or fuel. Omit what is harmful, which we'll talk about today. Water up. Exercise outdoors and rest up. And press the button some more. And here she is, looking like she's living a life on full of power. So press the button again. We'll get to see those words. And one more time, press the button. And right here, the first 4 letters of full power makes the word full. And each of those principles, F-U-L-L, which you see on the board there, are exactly what we need to focus on to omit what is harmful. Because some of us are going to need some help. Because we know that we're eating stuff which is hurting us. And I know that I eat stuff that hurts me. And I got to deal with that. Like, why do I do that? Easy. Answer is actually quite easy. It just tastes so good. That's why. But we got to dig into that a little bit. Why? We know it's hurting us, but yet we still eat it. There's something we got to work on there. And so let's see if we can go on to the next one. And so this came out by, this slide is not mine. It's produced by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And they give certifications for lifestyle coaches, etc. And so here we have the green and the yellow and the red. The green box is everything which science agrees on, which is good for you. The red box is everything science agrees on, which is bad for you, with very few exceptions. The middle box is where there's debate, okay? And there's more you can put in the middle box, like, for example, olive oil could be in the middle box, a few other things as well. Now, I will be dealing with the green box only. I'm recommending the green box. Because we're not talking about partial power. What are we talking about? Full power. So it could be extreme for some people, but it is, as the book title, the subtitle says, right up in here, the very top, right here, optimal body-mind vitality. So I don't want to make a promise that I don't deliver on. And this is how to deliver on that promise, optimal body-mind vitality. And so here's our problem. It's a major problem. Our salt intake, our fat intake, and our sugar intake, all processed food. Salt, we need some salt. Fat, only fat that comes from plants is all we need. And the sugar, nothing extracted. All right, just sugar is naturally occurring in the apple or the banana or the orange. And so if we're saying that, then we end up having to need some help. What's happening there? Wow, wow, wow. Elijah, can you help me just go back? I don't know, I pressed a button, it seemed to be, well, that's interesting. Back. Yeah, I keep on going back. Back. Stop. Now go ahead, one. Right there. That's that one. So I'm going to have to use you, Elijah, I think. So this guy here, his name is Michael Moss. Michael Moss is a journalist, and he's done some research on the food industry, i.e. the junk food industry. And I don't know if you can read it, but can you read what it says in that yellow circle there? How the food giants hooked us. You see, they hire scientists who know your brain better than you do. And those scientists know the pleasure centers of the brain and how it works. And so they produce the potato chips and the French fries and the ice cream and the candy and the sugar, salt, and fat products. They produce that to maximize the bliss point on our taste buds. so that that sends messages to the pleasure centers of our brains so that we want to buy more. And they make more money. As a matter of fact, the pharmaceutical industry, which produces lots of medications for when we get sick off this stuff, must be very appreciative of the junk food industry that makes us sick. And the junk food industry probably said, thank you very much, I'm glad. So we can keep on feeding people junk food, getting them hooked, and then the pharmaceutical industry can keep on providing the drugs to help them take care of the symptoms from eating from the junk food. And so it's quite a symbiotic relationship I think they must have, you know. I'm oversimplifying, I'm just kind of making fun a little bit here. I do appreciate the medical and I do appreciate the pharmaceutical industries, but you know what? We don't need them as much as we might think. So I'm watching YouTube and I see Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. And he does a TED Talk, TED. Just look up TED Talk, Dr. Esselstyn. Now, he's a guy who wrote books and has done research on heart disease and how to reverse it. He has the nerve, he has the gall to say he can cure it, cure heart disease. If I were to say I could cure heart disease, I'd get sued by the medical industry. But he's in the medical industry, and he says he can cure it through lifestyle medicine. And so he's got the audacity to do that, but he's won lots of awards. He was even in the Olympics as well back in his early days. And so here he is talking about a heart blockage. And I'd like to be able to read what it says up in this corner. I'll see if I can read it from here. All right, yay. 6 months on the diet, and my cholesterol is down 100 points. This is just somebody who's commenting on Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn. If that doesn't get someone's attention, I don't know what will. Thank you, Dr. Esselstyn, for teaching me the smart way to go. And so now I'm going to kind of zoom in on that. And let's see, I'll try one more time. Okay, over to you, Elijah, if you can press that button for me. And so I'm zooming in, and here's what he shows. He did some studies back a few decades ago, and this is when he started coming up with the data on what we eat, how it affects our blood and our blood vessels and blockages that occur there. So you'll notice right here, can you see that right there? It says in November 27, 1996, this man had a blockage in his heart, and you can see that the narrowing of the artery is there. So that means his blood pressure is going to shoot up because of that and other complications as well. And then, that was 1996. In 1999, in July, so this is like 2.5 years later, he was put on a whole foods plant-based diet. He's asked to walk just a little bit, then increase his walking. And now, we have evidence. Take a look. Shh, look at that. It's a full artery. So because of that and other things that Dr. Esselstyn did, he was able to say, yes, I can cure it. There's the evidence. There's the evidence right there. You cannot argue when you take these x-rays and everything else. You cannot argue with that. And so he says something which is kind of upsetting to a lot of people because we love our food. You know, it tastes so good. Why do we want to give it up? And so he'll say, the endothelial lining of the blood vessel. It's the inner lining, sort of like you have a pipe, and on the inside of the pipe, you want to make it as slippery as possible so the blood can go fast, right? He said, when you eat junk food, especially oil, it tears the endothelial lining on the inside of your blood vessel. And when there's a little tiny tear, then blood goes along and gets stuck in that. And then that more gets stuck on that, more gets stuck on that, and soon you have this cholesterol buildup, and soon you have a blockage. It takes years for that to happen, but it happens. So he says, going back to the root cause, don't have oil. Now, I'm going to actually quote him. Here he is talking about oil, one of the foods that he says, do not touch. Unless it's naturally occurring in nuts and seeds and olives. Eat the olive. Eat the nut, but not the oil from it. Eat the oil within it. Right? That's what he's saying. So he writes this book, and here he says, a revolutionary, scientifically proven, nutrition-based cure. He says no oil. If you look at that particular video on YouTube, he actually puts his hands up to his mouth and he says, no oil. And then go, no oil. Did you understand me? And not even olive oil, which is in the middle box, because there's people who say, yeah, olive oil is good for you, etc. So he says, not even olive oil. He says it goes against a lot of the other advice out there about the so-called good fats. The reality is that oils are extremely low in terms of nutritive value. Let's see if I can do this. They contain no fiber, no minerals, and 100% fat calories. So 120 calories per tablespoon, just in that alone. Just 120 calories is a lot of calories. Both the monounsaturated and saturated fats contained in oils is harmful to the endothelium, the innermost lining of the artery. And that injury is the gateway to vascular disease. So he is a heart surgeon. He's an expert on cardiovascular disease. And so he's been doing this for years, and so he's done these studies, and he says, I know what's going to really help. And oil does not help. It doesn't matter whether it's olive oil, corn oil, coconut oil, canola oil, or any other kind, avoid all oil. Now, I have a hard time with that myself because I love deep-fried whatever. I mean, it tastes good, right? So that causes me a little consternation. I want to be healthy, but I also want to have a good time and have a pleasurable time eating basically junk food, really, when it may as well be honest. And so that's what I have to deal with. So let's start off with this quote as we begin. Dr. Dean Ornish, who's a man I recommend you read from, he wrote a book called Undo It, great book. He says, lifestyle medicine often reverses the progression of the most common chronic conditions. Chronic conditions, diabetes, heart disease, those kind of things, kidney disease, chronic conditions, obesity, etc. Says lifestyle medicine can reverse that because they share the same underlying biological mechanisms. And that gets back to the CHIP program, which changed its name from coronary health to complete health. Because what we do that's good for our heart is also good for reducing diabetes. It's also good for everything else as well. Why? Because the mechanisms that underlie that are all the same, And so, let me see if I can get this one up here. I'm going to read this sentence. It's very small, but then I'm going to make it go up to the top, and I'm going to add some stuff there. Oh, thank you. The full power principles, which is lifestyle medicine, it's nature's formula, it's the health message, the full power principles, improves biological mechanisms. I'll explain what I mean. Which reverses symptoms. Okay, symptoms are things that hurt. We just don't want to have symptoms that hurts us. So let's move that to the top. And now, let's see if I can divide that sentence into 3. Elijah, could you press the button there? Thank you. And one more time. And one more time again. There, okay, stop right there. Now, I'm going to list under each of these 3 phrases of the sentence what that means. So the full power principles, we'll list them. Improves biological mechanisms, we'll list some of those. Which reverses symptoms, and we'll list some symptoms. So this will be like a big picture thing. Go ahead, Elijah, and press the buttons there. So one leads to the other one again. So we've gone over the full power principles. I won't read them again. Next button. So here are some of the biological mechanisms that lifestyle medicine contributes to. Okay, they are chronic inflammation will go down. The immune system will increase in strength. The circulatory efficiency increases. The telomeres either stop getting shorter or actually get longer. Now, how many of you have heard of telomeres? Raise your hands. So some of you have, but others of you haven't. Telomeres was actually a discovery back, about 15 years ago by Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. She won the Nobel Prize for discovering telomeres. And what they are is at the end of your chromosomes, the chromosomes would sort of like all the strings of a shoelace. And you want to kind of tie it all together. And like at the end of a shoelace is that little plastic thing. See, a telomere is just like that, but on your chromosome. And what they found out is that the longer the telomere is, which are long when you're born, they get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And then when they get where there's nothing left, then you die. So they were able to say that the length of your telomeres determines when you're going to die. I mean, this is not exactly like that, but a lot like that. So that's kind of the idea. So when we follow the full power principles, it can actually reverse aging in a sense because the telomeres get a little bit longer. It's almost miraculous because doctors said it has never happened before where you can lengthen your telomeres on your chromosomes. But yes, it can happen if you follow the full power principles. Of course, they never say full power. They say whole foods, plant-based, lifestyle medicine, yeah, that kind of stuff. And so that's telomeres. Also, eating this way, and not just eating, but living this way, makes a difference on our gene expression. We have genetics. We've got a lot of genes. And a lot of people say, well, I'm doomed to get a heart attack because it's in my genes. I would say, no, you're not. You may be, but the chances are very small that your genes are doing that. What could be doing it, though, is your gene expression, which means genes can be turned on or off. I won't get into the mechanics of that, but it's kind of fascinating to see how that happens. As a matter of fact, you could have 2, 3, or 4, or 500 genes getting turned on or off, which would be making you healthier or harming you, one or the other. And so what determines that? It's what we eat. It's how we sleep. It's our attitude. It's our belief system. It's everything to do with full power. So full power can actually turn on the good genes and turn off the bad genes. And so we're not doomed by our genetics. If we're doomed by anything, it's by our decisions that we make and what we do, our habits. Also, the full power principles affect our angiogenesis. What does that mean, angiogenesis? What's Genesis? Means beginnings, right? The word gene is in Genesis. It's the same word. The word generation comes from the same word as well. Genetic comes from the same word as Genesis. So, but what's angio? That's like blood vessels. So angiogenesis is the creation or the beginning of new blood vessels. It's just wonderful. It's like new creations are happening inside of our bodies when we put in the right fuel to make it all work. Well, full power principles helps that mechanism to happen. And so the next one is microbiome. I won't get into all this too much, but a lot of, what do you call that? A lot of little bugs that go inside of our intestines. Lots of species are there, and we need to have it working well. Our autophagy. Autophagy is when we have parts of our cells that need to be replaced. And so it's kind of like a junkyard for cars. You take the old car in, but you don't throw it away. You use it for parts. And you take parts from one old car and you make up like a new car with it. And that's called autophagy for our body's cells. Now, when we live the full power life, then autophagy happens very, very efficiently. And so the proteins are pulled apart and then reassembled for something else that our body needs. It's just amazing how our body is made. It's just like efficient recycling, in a sense. And then apoptosis is when cells actually die. They need to be taken care of, and so they need to be taken care of in an efficient way. And so it's efficient when we're living a life of full power, following those principles. And then neurological activity, of course, increases where it needs to, and we have self-regulation, all those wonderful things. And so now, we just said the full power principles, it's the pink, improves biological mechanisms, I just went over some, which reverses symptoms. Now, go ahead, Elijah, press the button for this one. Here are the symptoms that are affected by the mechanisms which are affected by the principles, the health principles, okay? So coronary heart disease, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, obesity, cellular aging, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, early stage prostate cancer and depression, and there's a few more too. So I put all this on the screen to recognize that we are whole beings, mind and body together as one unit. What we do to our mind, we do to our bodies. What we do in our bodies, it affects our minds. And so here is a evidence-based depiction of the mechanisms of first causes, how they affect the mechanisms in our bodies, and how that affects the symptoms of diseases that we have. And so isn't it wonderful that God, our Creator, knows what makes us run? And so he gives us these principles so we can run on full power, if I could say that. So next slide here. What do you think? What do you think of that? I think that's quite amazing, really. You know, that's quite something. And so we're dealing with one of those principles, omit what is harmful. It used to be called temperance. Before that, it used to be called abstemiousness. All right, but we'll call it omit what is harmful. And so when we do, that hand comes down in the middle of the domino effect, and it stops the cause and effect from going on into a heart attack or whatever else it's going to be. So that's what we want to do. That's what we want to do, is stop the bad effects of our old habits and things like that. So let me see. Okay, Elijah, go ahead, press the button. Here's a poor fellow. What's he doing? He's tempted, isn't he? Some people aren't tempted by that, but some people are. He's looking at that alcohol, and he's wondering, I want to take it, but I don't want to take it. Oh, I should. No, I shouldn't. He's battling. And how many of us have our own battles, right? Some of us do, right? We got our battles. I'll come back to him in a little bit. Well, here's a sentence that was said to me, it must have been more than 30 years ago now. I was taking guitar lessons from a Salvation Army band leader. And he wasn't going to church at the time. He was so talented in music. He played the trombone before the Queen of England because of his talent. He could play piano, he could play any wind instrument, he could play guitar, he could play anything, piano, anything. And so I went to him to learn guitar. After our guitar lesson was over, we became friends. We went to his kitchen and he pulled out a cigarette. And then as he's smoking the cigarette, he knows that I don't smoke, and I'm not telling him not to smoke. I'm fine if he wants to smoke. I don't know, but here's what he said. I have never. And he held the cigarette in his hand like this. His elbow was on the table, cigarette in his hand like this. I have never hated something, what did it say? So much in my life as the cigarette. That's what he said to me, exact words. He never loved or hated something. He loved it, but he hated it. Do you know what I'm saying? He loved it because it felt good. He hated it because he knew what it was doing to him inside. And he was stuck, and so many of us are stuck. And that's what I had to deal with before I could write this book. Not about smoking, but about other habits, okay? So I write this. This is in my book now, I write this. Perhaps he didn't know it, or perhaps deep down he did know it, but he was articulating the most powerful insight in the world. So I'm now going to write some words on the screen, which I think comes down to the clarity of it all right here. The battle between short-term pleasures and long-term goals. Short-term pleasures versus long-term goals. I bet if I asked any one of you, what are your goals in life? And you might say, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to, you'd have long-term goals. And then I would ask, and I ask this of myself, what are you doing in the short term to help you reach the long-term goals? And sometimes, and for me especially my early, later years, I guess, I just loved junk food. French fries, potato chips, ice cream, pizza, what else? Name some more junk food. Pardon? Jelly beans, oh yeah. Chocolate bars, of course, chocolate bars. Yeah. So junk food, it tastes so good. And I can say the same thing that my guitar teacher said about cigarettes. I could have said, I could have a chocolate bar in my hand. I could say I've never loved or hated so much in my life as this chocolate bar. I love the chocolate. You realize we have about 10,000 taste buds on our tongue. The older we get, the fewer we start losing taste buds. But it's interesting, those 10,000 taste buds, and if you happen to be over 60 or 70, you might be down to 5,000 by now, which is why I got to have more salt in your food and everything else. But anyway, never mind that. So we have, say, 10,000 taste buds being the guard to the 50 trillion cells of our bodies. The 50 trillion cells of our bodies need fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables and legumes in large variety. But our taste buds don't want that. They want the chocolate bar, the ice cream, the French fries, potato chips. Now, not you guys, but I'm talking about the people down the street. But this is a lot of people have to deal with this. And so this short-term versus long-term. So someone has expressed it this way. We have to choose between what we want now versus what we want most. And sometimes we give up what we want most because what we want now takes over. Short term, long term. If you read the Bible, the word wisdom shows up a lot. And the word wisdom has to do with making decisions now that affect the long term. It's not wise to eat junk food. It's not wisdom. It's wisdom to omit what is harmful. And so we read Proverbs, for example. We read Matthew 7, the men who built his house on the rock and the sand. You know, there's wisdom in the one that builds on the rock, even though it's harder work. And so this is kind of like that. It's what we want in the long term. And what do we do now to get that long-term stuff? So that's why the health message is not just about your health, it's about personal growth. It's about maturity. It's about being strong mentally as well as physically, you see. So let's see what else we can do. So the flesh and the spirit is kind of how the Bible depicts that. Romans chapter 7 talks about the things I want to do, I don't do. I wish I could, but I don't. And the things I don't want to do, that's what I do. This is the Apostle Paul talking, all right? And then he goes on in chapter 8 and gives the answer, power from above, right? Power from above. So we won't talk too much about that. We did mention it earlier this morning. So, all right, Elijah, I need you. Go ahead, Elijah. Now, what's her name? Christina Aguilera. She even writes the song, Save Me From Myself. So I think she kind of got this as well. Here she is. That's not Christina, but it reminds me of anybody who has a choice to make. Have you ever been in this situation before? Oh, I could eat this. This is really good for me, but it doesn't taste so good. Or I could eat this. I love chocolate cake. We go through that a lot. And it may not be chocolate cake for you, but it would be something else, right? So let's see if we can understand this just a little bit more. Let's talk about Mary's willpower tank. Based on science, but I've made it into a story. Mary gets up in the morning. She's the wife of a husband, and she's got 2 children going off to school. And Mary has work as well. She gets the breakfast for her kids, and she gets a good, healthy breakfast for herself because she wants to be healthy. There's a donut on the counter in the kitchen, and she's tempted to eat the donut, but she doesn't because she wants to start her day off well. So she drives the kids to school, and then she gets to work. Let me see if I can, that's not looking very good there, is it? I've done this on Keynote, and this is on PowerPoint. It's been converted, so what you're seeing is not what I wanted you to see. But the idea is, I'm just going to put it down here. She goes through her day. And when she goes through her day, every decision she makes uses up energy. It's like it depletes her willpower tank. In the scientific literature, they call that ego depletion. And so then she goes through the day and she resists the chocolates that are on the desk of the secretary as she goes into the office. She resists those. And to resist those, she has to use up energy to resist those. And then she makes decisions throughout the day. She's on the phone, she's talking to people, having meetings. And every decision she makes, she uses up more willpower, more willpower. And then what's the next one? She resists the butter at lunch, and then she resists the donut at lunch, and she just loves donuts. And so, see if I can press this on. Then before she goes back home, she makes her last decision at work. She goes home, she sees that donut that she resisted in the morning. What does she do? She eats it now. What happened to Mary? She was so strong. She didn't eat the donut in the morning. She was decisive. She was strong. But throughout the day, all these decisions that she was making, she was using up energy that came from her cerebral cortex, the prefrontal cortex, and that uses 20 times more glucose than the basal ganglia, which is where habits are. And so no wonder her ego, or I won't say ego because usually we think of ego as arrogance and stuff, so I won't use that word, but her willpower. Her willpower had like a gas tank, and it got empty. So when she gets home, she's got no more willpower left. Now, to understand that, we need to understand how the brain works. Now, I don't fully understand how the brain works. I don't know if anyone does. But where habits occur, where habits are recorded, where habits come out of is the basal ganglia, among other places, but the basal ganglia mostly. And let me see if I can put it this way. Habits are automatic behaviors traced to a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, a portion of the brain associated with emotions, patterns, and memories. You might remember tasting something so good last week, and so that memory is in your brain, and because that memory is there, you want to get it back again, so you eat it again. So that's just an overly simplest explanation of that. Habits. Habits don't take energy. Habits aren't things you think about. You just do it. You just do it. Decisions, on the other hand, decisions are not habits. Decisions are made in the prefrontal cortex. When a behavior becomes a habit, we stop using the decision-making skills, and instead we function on autopilot, which is what you want to do for good habits. It's what you don't want to do for bad habits. And so the idea is then to take our behaviors that contribute to the mechanisms we talked about and change them to be automatic, the good behaviors. That's the goal. Why? Because willpower will only get you so far. You can last a day, maybe a week on willpower. But how many times can you resist? Often, we look at people who are successful. Say, wow, they have a lot of willpower. They don't even eat any of that junk food. They are so strong. How do they do it? I tell you, it's not willpower, my friends. It's habits. You look at the people of the blue zones, and they live so long, and they eat so well, and we give them compliments, and we admire them for their strength and their decision-making powers, but it's not willpower. It's habits. Quite easy to have habits in the blue zones that are good because they don't have McDonald's. They don't have junk food. I mean, some of them do now, but back then when Dan Buettner discovered these places, their environment contributed to good habits. So they didn't need willpower. And that's kind of the secret of willpower, is to not need it because you're running on habits. So that's the goal, is to get your habits figured out. And that's why we have in the book habit trackers. And you can't do it all, but you can start here and there. So how do we resist? How do we resist? Well, we resist by finding out what our purpose in life is. And that gives us strength. Because we have to resist for the first, well, you've heard that it takes 21 days to get a new habit. That's not right. That was right for particular things. It actually takes between 18 days and 255 days, depending on what the habit is and depending on what your experience is. And the average, if you average it all out, it takes about 66 days to get a behavior into a habit where you don't need to decide. It's just you're running on autopilot. It's so nice to just not even be tempted, And so it takes about 66 days. So in that time, depends on what habit it is and where you are and everything else. Could be 18 days for you. It could be 123 days for someone else, whatever it may be. But the average 66. So let's just take 66. That's about 2 months. Maybe 2 months and a week. So then we have that time period, which is the hump to get over. So if we can only get ourselves through that 2 months, then we can get ourselves on autopilot. And then we're just sailing. And that's the goal. So what do you do to get you over the hard stuff, where you actually have to use your prefrontal cortex, and that uses up glucose, it uses up energy. What do? F-U-L-L. Find your superpower to fulfill your purpose. Maybe I can illustrate it this way. Let's just say I love donuts. And I'm going down the street, and I smell Tim Hortons. I smell the sweetness of those donuts. And I have to go in because I love donuts. Okay, a week passes, and I get myself a purpose. I have a job to do. And now I'm going past Tim Hortons, and because I'm focused on my purpose, Tim Hortons is not even registering on my books anymore. It would only happen if I am focused on the positive purpose, so that the temptation just kind of dissolves away. That's why the first chapter, or the second chapter, but the first principle in the book is called Find Your Superpower, your gifts, your talents, so that you can determine what your purpose in life is in this stage of your life. That cascades down to giving you strength for all the other habits in the book and in life and in nature. So find your purpose. Next one, unleash your spirituality. Unleash healthy spirituality. Because we will find out, when I teach this course, Full Power 1, sometimes churches have me back to do Full Power 2. And Full Power 2 was this right here, but only expanded to a whole weekend. Unleash positive spirituality, Full Power 2. And why? Because we need power, external power. We can't do it ourselves. We need God. Romans chapter 8. And so next one is the L, which is lovify your life, which is having love in your life. And then launch your plan. It's no good to know stuff if you don't do it. And so you put all that together, and you have F-U-L-L, which gets you through the hard stages before you can turn those good behaviors into autopilot habits. So when my wife did this, my wife and I started May 1 a few years ago, we had each other. We encouraged each other. So that's the lovify your life part. We had a purpose. We would go for a walk on the beach. Okay, we live next to a beach. And near French Creek Marina, if you know it. And then we go out on the pier, on the breakwater, and go to the very end. You know, there's a sign that says, don't go beyond the sign because a tidal wave might come up and kill you. So we stop somewhere near there. And then we pray. We look to the rising sun. We don't worship the sun, but we think God made the sun. So we're thanking God for the sun, for the water, for the mountains. And we pray for each other. And that's the unleash your spirituality part. And we have the purpose. And we launched our plan. We're going for the walk. We have measuring devices. We're measuring our steps. Try to get 10,000 steps. You know, don't always do it, but hey, we're out there. So that got us through. That got us through. helping each other, having the purpose, having the spiritual life, the devotional life, and then launching your plan, setting a date and starting on that date. That's F-U-L-L. And when we have the F-U-L-L, that enables us to do the P-O-W-E-R. And we're talking about the O part right now. So what do you think of that? Well, look at the picture and tell me what would happen if there wasn't a goal that guy was shooting for. You got these little gremlins going around trying to bug him. We'll use that as a metaphor for temptations, for cravings, for desires for something that may feel good but isn't good. And those temptations are trying to get his attention. But you know what? He's not paying attention. Why? He's on his way to a goal. He's got his mind set on something. And so sometimes the answer is, and you can email me, I'll give you a document if you want, how to overcome temptation. And part of the answer is by not focusing on the temptation, but by focusing on the goal that's beyond the temptation. So here she is, she's looking at, what's that, a Danish? Some kind of Danish. Look at her eyes. She's saying, I must not eat this, I must not eat this, I must not eat this. And she's focusing right on it. That's not going to work for her. I tell you, it's not going to work for her. Instead, and this is just part of it, not all of it, she takes a stock of her craving. She says, I am tempted right now. So we call that metacognition. We are aware of our thinking. And that's sometimes that awareness is the first step towards success. So she says, instead, I am tempted right now. And okay, now that is a cue to her next step. Not giving in, but her next step, which is, what foods will fuel my health and happiness? That's my goal. What foods will advance me toward my goals? Now, asking that question doesn't always work, but it's the first step. It's the first step. There's more to it, of course, just like the kind of stuff we might deal with addicts and stuff, which I'll talk about in a bit. Does this ring a bell? Does this look familiar to you? It's a mouse trap, but it's not for the mice. Strength to resist temptation does not come through focusing on resisting. See, that's part of the secret. When we focus on the temptation to resist it, sometimes we win, but many times we lose. So the answer is not to focus on the temptation to resist it, even though we know we should resist it, right? And so what can we say then? Overcoming temptation is a byproduct of focusing on something greater. So what is your something greater? Yeah? God, Jesus, and the goal that he set for you. The spiritual gift, the talents that he gave you to use to be a blessing to others. That gives us strength. That gives us strength to resist temptation. You know why? Because when we are focused on something so beautiful as using our talents to be a blessing to others, we don't even know we're tempted. Temptation may have been there, we didn't know. Why? We're too busy focusing on the love and the purpose and those kind of things. So this is a very, very important principle here. As a safeguard against temptation, the preoccupation of the mind with good, the preoccupation of your mind with good, doing good, is worth more than unnumbered attempts at self-discipline. There's the secret. Get preoccupied with doing some good thing that you enjoy. And then, excuse me, all those attempts at self-discipline won't be needed. That's that part of the secret right there. Well, so how to resist? Don't depend on willpower. You get that craving. Oh, I need willpower to conquer the craving. No, just use that craving as a cue to do something for your purpose. And there's more to it, and it's in the book, there's more to it. I can't explain it all right now, but that's kind of part of it. Part of it also is setting your environment. your environment, to support your goals. Maybe here's an example. Here's an environment. Your refrigerator is your environment, is part of your environment. Your car, your kitchen, your workplace. Make your environment support your goals. Arrange your food atmosphere in a way that strengthens your 37 trillion cells. And I didn't count how many cells there are. I don't know if it's 50 trillion or 37 trillion. Anybody count last night? Tell me how many trillions of cells you have. So we'll just say 37 trillion right now. But look at this. Look at this one. There she is. What's her environment? Chocolate cake is right in the center of it. So she is going for it right there. That's not a great environment. Instead, she wants to be more like that. Now, it's interesting. The book of Romans in the Bible has something to say about that, about your environment. Put on the Lord Jesus Christ and make no provision for the flesh to fulfill its lusts. The flesh versus the spirit, that is a scriptural, biblical, Christian way of saying the short-term pleasure desires. That's what that is. And so the Bible says, don't set your environment so that you're not tempted pretty well. And so instead of, let me just look at this poor girl. This girl is an addict. She's a drug addict. She's on the streets. Not now, but she was when this picture was taken. Then, this is the same girl. I'm going to read to you what she wrote. On the left is me, she says, completely broken. 93 pounds. Living on the streets, living in fear and pain, addicted to meth and heroin, and ready for my life to finally end. I had endocarditis twice from using, and I had a hole in my heart. My mom took that picture when she went to rescue me. Thank God for moms. On the right, I took this picture tonight. Didn't care about angles. I just wanted to show my happiness. 9 months clean. I fought hard for months in the hospital. Survived heart surgery and gained 40 pounds. Got a place to live. Had my family and my 2 cats to help me. I posted the before picture a lot, but my story is important. Recovery is possible, and it's worth it. That's what she wrote. Somebody reads that. Keep going, he says. We're all addicted to something. The difference is you're beating yours. I thought, here he is. Whoever he is, I don't know. His name is Scott Ryan. Don't know who he is. He's writing this on what it used to be called Twitter. We're all addicted to something. We're all addicted to something. Well, I don't know if you recognize that guy. This is the after picture. I'll show you a before picture. Yeah, I don't know if anybody remembers me looking like that. This was taken when I was working in the conference office, I don't know, 10 years ago, maybe more. I'm here to tell you that that first picture is also a picture of an addict. Not a drug addict, but an addict of a different kind. You know why I call myself that? I have to tell you a story. You see, on Saturday nights, I used to, not all the time, but many times, eat celebration food, junk food. Like I mentioned, ice cream, potato chips, french fries, whatever, pizza, chocolate, bars and stuff. And one night, I'd eaten late at night, like 10:30 or something. And I wake up later that morning, early morning, with this terrible pain in my stomach. And I knew why. I mean, I did it to myself. I overate junk food. It tasted good at the time, but now I'm reaping what I've sown. And I admit it. And I say to myself, oh, man, never again am I going to do that. A month later, guess what? I'm doing it again. What's going on? The second time I said, never again, I thought of my grandfather. My grandfather was an alcoholic. And when I lived in New Brunswick as a 10-year-old boy, we went to Grandma's house for vacation in the summertime. I loved going to Grandma's house. And I didn't mind my grandfather, but I loved my grandmother. She made the atmosphere like Disneyland. Well, I was sleeping in my room at Grandma's house. I had 2 brothers and a sister, my mother and father, and we're all kind of filling up the house, like summer vacation stuff. It's about 2:30 in the morning now, and I'm awakened by a loud noise. It's my grandfather, and he's drunk. He apparently had just come home from being out, and he's having an argument with his wife, my dear grandmother. And he is yelling, and he's screaming, and he's saying swear words that a little boy should never hear. He was sexual in what he was saying, violent sexual stuff, and it was awful, and it was scary for me. So I tried to plug my ears, but it didn't help. It was kind of traumatic to hear that. How could he talk to my grandmother that way? I covered the blankets over my ears, and finally I went to sleep. Early the next morning, my mother comes and gets me, and she says, we're going. First of all, we're going downstairs. It was like a basement suite, but it was unfinished. So we ate breakfast down there. I said, Mom, I want to eat breakfast upstairs like normal, on the main floor. How come we're eating down here? It's dark and dingy and stuff. It was like a garage turned into an apartment type of thing. I want to go upstairs. Don't go upstairs. But Mom, Grandma's, don't go upstairs. And so my father said the same thing. Don't go upstairs. But it felt so strange. So when they weren't looking, I went upstairs. And my grandfather was a carpenter, and he built this spiral staircase to go upstairs. And so I'm going up the staircase, and I finally open the door and go through the entrance room, and I'm heading toward the living room, and it's so eerie. It's like dark. No lights are on, no breakfast is cooking, nothing. And then I walk through the door, and I go, and I see what looks like a dead man on the floor. It's my grandfather. He's lying down on the floor. His shirt is all open. His big belly is open. And not his belly, but a shirt. And he's got vomit and stuff is gross, just gross stuff. His head is crooked up against the couch, so it's like this. It looks like it would be hard for him to breathe. His hand is down on the floor, and there's a rum bottle, empty, 4 inches from his hand. So it's obvious what he was doing. And I had never, ever seen that before in my life. I was 10 years old, so I backed up. No wonder Mom says I shouldn't go upstairs. They didn't want me to see this. I sneaked downstairs. I never told my mom about it until 2 years ago. I said, you know what I did 2 years ago? I actually wrote it in my book. I needed my mother was going to read the book. I had to tell her I was going to do this and ask her permission, actually, because I'm talking about her father, right, in this way. And so we end up going to my other grandparents' house and coming back 3 days later. And now we're gathered around my grandfather. He's sitting on his lazy boy chair where he slept and lived for 20 years. And then the 7 of us are gathered around in a circle around him. My grandmother and the 6 of us, my mother and father and my siblings. And we're having a discussion. We're talking. We're socializing. And in the middle of that, my grandfather turns his head and he looks straight at me. And he says, you could tell he was apologetic. He knew what he had done to his family. He scared us. He looks right straight at me and he says, never again, never again. And I believed him. And a month later, he did it again. But I wasn't there then. I was back living in New Brunswick. And a month later, he did it again and again and again until he died of alcoholism and complications. Now here I am as an adult. And I'm saying those exact same words, and I had never remembered the words that he said until it triggered in my mind when I said, never again, never again. And I thought to myself, am I like my grandfather? Only with like junk food? Am I like is this what an alcoholic feels like? Where he doesn't have control? He loves it, but he hates it? And he promises himself he's not going to do it again, and then he does it again? Is that what an addict goes through? And so I started to think, am I a pastor addict? No. It took me 2 years. 2 years. And I finally learned a little bit more about my true nature and why I need a higher power to get me through. Let me see. I put it in the book. My search, my motivation to find out whether I was truly had an addictive personality. Because if I did, then there are millions and millions of people who are just like me. And maybe our entire society is built for the addictive personality. We call it normal, but if it's the norm, it's what's killing us. And so I looked up in the DSM. What's that stand for? Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, version 5. I looked it up. I wanted to find out. I needed to, in a sense, diagnose myself. Found overall the diagnosis of substance use disorder is based on a pathological, which means harmful, pattern of behaviors related to the use of substance. These 4 major groupings of addictive behaviors, here they are, 4 major groupings. So now it's going to say, which ones do I have? Which ones do you have? Number 1, lack of self-control. Symptoms such as unsuccessful efforts to cut down or stop using, sometimes due to uncontrollable cravings. And I said, yeah, I got that one. I did my assessment of myself on, you can do this too, go to the internet and find out addictive personality and you can do a test. I got 10 out of 10. That's awful. But it tells me I need a higher power. I know I'm not the only one. And then number 2, social problems. Symptoms such as neglecting major role obligations or relationships at work, school, or home. As far as I knew, I didn't have that. I was fairly responsible, and somebody else might say otherwise, I don't know. But if I assessed myself, I didn't think I had that kind of social problems where I neglected my obligations. Risky use, number 3. Symptoms such as failure to abstain from using despite the problems it's causing. So when I said never again, and then I did it a month later, I knew it was causing problems, and yet I still did it. This is me. So number 1 is checked off, number 2 is no, and number 3 is checked off. So I got now to 2 out of 3. And then what's the next one? Physical dependence. Symptoms such as tolerance and withdrawal. What's that? Tolerance is needing more of the substance to achieve the desired effect, or a markedly reduced effect when the usual dose is consumed. Are you ever satisfied with 1 potato chip? Or 1 cookie? Withdrawal is signaled by a psychological and or physiological discomfort when the reward of the taste pleasures is not reached. I thought, do I have that? I struggled over that. I thought, well, not really, but maybe, you know. So here are the 4, and I had at least 2, maybe 2.5 out of the 4. I thought, wow, I need to check this out some more. And so I read this book by Dr. Gabor Mate. Ever heard of him? He worked with addicts on Vancouver's downtown east side. Very famous. He's written like 7 or 8 books by now. And he wrote this book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts and Close Encounters with Addiction. I read that book over the Christmas holidays a few years back. And I thought, you know what? I'm not as desperate as the drug addicts on Vancouver's downtown east side. But I did notice similar mechanisms happening with me and with them. Not as intense. And Dr. Gabor Mate himself said that he has an addictive personality. And he says, my addictive compulsion has caused me to betray my true values and disregard my true goals. That's what he said. That's what addiction does. You have values, honesty, temperance, and yet the addictions, I won't even call it addiction, I call it cravings, call it strong desires that we give into. That betrays our very own goals. Short-term pleasures take away our long-term goals. If we stick to the long-term goals, we'll know what to do with our short-term pleasures. And so this is the battle that we have. What time is it right now? Okay, another 10 minutes or so. We're talking about root causes. We want to get back to the root cause of this. And so 2 of the major causes of addiction or cravings that are uncontrollable are ACEs and stress. Does anyone here know what I mean by ACEs? ACE, adverse childhood experiences. ACEs. So, and stress, I think we know what stress is. Environmental, sometimes what we believe about ourselves. If we happen to believe that God is an austere, awful, mean God, and he's very powerful, and that's a belief we have, that can be stressful, and that can contribute to disease. That's why we talk about healthy spirituality, not toxic spirituality. So I was reading this book, The Deepest Well. This lady, Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, was, at the time she wrote this, the Surgeon General of California. And she was, I think she lived in Sacramento, somewhere there, and she had a clinic and she took care of adults as well as children. And she began to notice that when children went through a lot of stress, abuse, those kind of things, that when they became adults, they had more diseases. And she wanted to know, is this simply an anecdotal observation, or is there some stable science behind this? And she found out there is some science behind this. And so she wrote the book called The Deepest Well, and the reason why she uses the word well, like a deep well, you get your water from the well, is that in some village somewhere in some poor country, all the people were drinking from the well and they all got sick. And so she, or the doctor that she read about, was treating all these sick people, and he traced it to the well. And the deepest well is, if adults have these diseases and they all go through the same adverse childhood experiences, then maybe those experiences cause those diseases if you take the domino effect, not directly but indirectly, one after another. And so this is what she was studying, and she had read some information about it. Fascinating, fascinating. Because here's what she found. All right, Elijah. Thank you. She found that they measured the different childhood experiences that you could have, which were adverse, negative, harmful. And there were 10 of them. Physical abuse, physical neglect, household member who suffered from a mental health issue, sexual abuse, loss of parent due to death, divorce, or abandonment, emotional abuse, emotional neglect, household member who's addicted to illegal drugs and or alcohol, household member who is incarcerated or witnessing domestic violence against your mother. All these are 10 adverse childhood experiences that a child could have. And so the idea is that the more of those they had, the greater the number of diseases they got when they were an adult. And sure enough, that's exactly what she found and what the scientists found that she was studying. It's probably hard to see this, but I'll just read a couple of these. Well, let me just read this one. If you have 4 or more of those 10 ACEs, 4 or more of those negative experiences. Hard to see. Let me see if I can read it from the screen up here. Thank you for putting it here. 4 or more ACEs, 3 times the levels of lung disease in adult smoking. Just by having abuse or neglect as a child, you're more likely to smoke and then get lung cancer. Who would ever think that one is related to the other? But they found out that, yes, it is. So this seminar called Full Power is about root causes. Root causes. This is a root cause. Another one. If we have 4 or more of those childhood adverse experiences, we're 14 times more likely to commit suicide than someone who hasn't gone through that. So you can see, and there's so much more. I'll read just one more and then we'll stop. We have a 60, if we have 4 more of those ACEs, then we're 11 times more likely to use intravenous drug use. So you see that there's a pattern here. And so this is a contributor to addictions, whether it's food, alcohol, or drugs or cigarettes. Sugar and cocaine, heroin are kind of similar. They're white powders extracted from something from nature. And so this is rather fascinating. Some people ask the question, well, what exactly is a trauma? You can tell by the acronym UDIN. It's unexpected, it's dramatic, it's isolating, and you have no resources to deal with it. A car accident could be that. A flood that washes away your house could be that. Sexual abuse could be that. So this is traumatic. And so we now have in the field of counseling and psychology and health, trauma-informed counseling. Because we're dealing with things that happened in the past that created in us a desire to make up for whatever it may be. And we have these things happening. So let me see if I can go on. Okay, Elijah, go ahead. And keep on going, Elijah. Press the next button. And I want to read this one. Go back to that. That's the one. From Atomic Habits, which is a great book, I was blown away by this concept right here. You do not rise to the level of your goals. Well, I thought you did. Got to have goals, got to have purposes, right? So he finds out, no. You fall to the level of your systems. In other words, your routines, your morning routines, your evening routines, your habits. What we accomplish in life has less to do with our goals in life than it does with our habits in life. Okay? That was profound for me. I have a little story in the book on that. And so, now when I was reading this book, The Deepest Well, Healing the Long-Term Effects of Childhood Adversity, you know what I found what the answer was? I was shocked. I was surprised. I was just, it was astounding what Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris said she did for the adults in the Sacramento area. She went through and she says, we tried this, we did that, this didn't work, this worked. And she went on like this. And I'm thinking, everything she said that worked was a full power principle. I mean, I didn't expect that. I'm going, wow. God knew ahead of time what principles we need to go by so that we can be healed of whatever we need to be healed of. And so it says healing the long-term effects of childhood adversity. She didn't say it, but she may as well have, through the full power principles. So now you don't need to read that book. You can just read the full power plan. You want to do that? Read the book anyway. You'll find some inspiration there. Tell me the time. What time is it? I can't see the time. 8:37. All right, time for me to stop. When I do this talk, this is almost the longest one. So I'm going to stop with this. What could I say to my grandfather if I knew he'd listen, if I can go back in time with the knowledge that I now have? I could say to him, Granddad, I just talked with your daughter, my mother, and I found out that your father was an alcoholic, and you may have been abused, I don't know. Your mother died when you were 9 years old, and you ran away from home. They found you, they forced you into an orphanage, and you ran away from the orphanage. You talk about adverse childhood experiences. Then he grows up, he gets married, and then they have children, and here I am. And he became an alcoholic because he needed to cope. And that coping mechanism ended up destroying him later on. But why did it do that? Because through all of that adversity as a child, his brain is developing. And the younger we are when we get this adversity, whether it be in the womb or as an infant or a toddler, the younger we are, the more it affects the developing brain. Now, interesting, in the brain that is developing, there's something called dopamine receptors. Dopamine receptors. And dopamine is that hormone that gets excreted in our system when we have a sense of anticipation. Some people call it the pleasure hormone, but it really isn't. It's the anticipation of pleasure hormone. And so because we anticipate the pleasure of, say, alcohol or donuts or cigarettes, we want to have more of it. The reason why is because when we go through the adversity as a child, the dopamine receptors don't get created as much. There's fewer of them. So a person who goes through a happy, well-adjusted childhood has so many dopamine receptors, like a lot of them. But someone who goes through abuse, the dopamine receptors, there's so few of them. But now, when you have the anticipation of the taste of alcohol or cigarettes or food or drugs, whatever it may be, it goes through the neurons of our brains, and then it gets to the end of the neuron. It has to jump the synapse to get to the other neuron. And it goes from an electrical signal to what's the word? It's a neurotransmitter anyway. It turns into a molecule. And it's kind of like it's got to swim across the gap. Everything good and bad happens in the gap between the two neurons. And on the other end is these receptors. And so dopamine goes through, and because there's not enough receptors to take the anticipation of pleasure hormone, the decision to anticipate pleasure, you have to do more of it in order to get the dopamine through. Because it's almost like there's 12 men on the loading dock, and 2 are fired. There's only 10 men left to do the work of 12. And it wears them out. And that's what happens to the dopamine receptors in our brain. And so, in other words, the alcoholic or the foodaholic ends up having to have more alcohol or more food just to get that feeling of satisfaction that normal people have without even trying. That's why I'm never going to judge an alcoholic or I will never judge. Because I'm not going to say to them, what's wrong with you? How come you're behaving this way? Don't you know it's stupid to be eating and drinking that way? You're going to kill yourself. I'll never say that. You know why? Because I don't know what they've been through. I don't know what they've been through. And that's why Dr. Bruce Perry wrote with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey's been quite open with her abuse that she had when she was a child. And so she gets together with this world-renowned doctor on addictions that Dr. Gabor Mate quotes all the time. And they write a book. And it's called What Happened to You? And they talk about, it's not what's wrong with you. No, that's not the question. The question is, what happened to you? It's more compassionate. It's less judgmental. And so especially we who are, most of us I'm sure, are Christian. We're somewhat church people. That's why we have more reason than ever before to understand the root causes of someone's sin, their addictions, whatever their behaviors, their negative behaviors. So we have more compassion because they're not our enemy. They're the victims of our enemy, the devil. And so we can look at someone who is selfish, arrogant, going through self-sabotaging behaviors. We can look at some. And then because we know that they have all these symptoms, they have had to have had something happen in their childhood. And then we can feel compassion for them, empathy for them, and not fear or disgust, whatever it may be. So I'd say to my granddad I talked to him about the dopamine receptors. And then he'd say to me, I imagine, what do I do about it? The answer pretty well is follow the full power principles. There's a whole lot more. And so in my book, I write about this under the omit what is harmful, the situation. And at the end of that chapter, I write, what you do about it? Turn the page and go on to the omit what is harmful, the solution. And the solution includes the F-U-L-L. And so that's why when we talk about health, it's not just about eat right. There's psychological stuff that we need to deal with. And then what helps us with that is that for those of us who believe, we can have an outside power. He's called Jesus Christ. And he comes in, and he loves me, and I feel the love. If you don't feel the love, it's not good, but I feel the love. I feel the compassion. I feel his power. I feel his direction. I feel his guidance. I feel his counsel. He's my coach. He's my Lord. He's my Savior. And so that helps with the power that I need, so that he gets me focusing on the right thing, so that the cravings aren't noticed as much. That's what I tell my granddad. It's gone now. I don't have a chance. God knows whatever he went through. And so I'm sorry that I've been a little, what's the word? Intense. But when we talk about health, we can never neglect the psychological aspect of why we do what we do. And that's why some of us are more obese. That's why some of us are more giving into cravings, is because the physiology of our brain isn't what it ought to be, and it's not our fault. But God knows that, and he provides principles for us to follow and steps for us to follow. And guess what? We have each other too. We have each other. And that's why, is it Bobby and Doug, you have this thing on Monday nights, Celebrate Recovery. You know what? I think more of us need that than you might realize. But it took me 2 years to admit that I needed to recover. And so I speak to you now as someone who's recovering. You could even say I'm recovering from sin, but I'll always need my Savior. Always need my Savior. And he gives me hope, and he gives me a purpose, makes me feel useful, and then he gives me the tools to accomplish the purpose through gifts and talents. Read the parable of the talents, changed my life. And he gives me all that. And so, yes, I can admit all of the bad stuff is there. But I can also admit there's a whole lot of good stuff. There's a whole lot of good stuff that our Lord and our Savior wants for us. So if you want to know more, email me or email your pastor. And I or he will give you a document called How to Hear the Voice of God. They give you things to do to experiment with God. And there's a couple of other documents, too, that I sent you, Pastor. One is the summary of full power and a little thing you can fill out. And the other one is, an assessment of the healthiness of your spirituality. You can just fill this out for yourself. Email me, email the pastor, say, could you please send this to me? And he can forward what I sent to him. Is that okay? Yeah, he's happy to do that. And so it's getting late. You have things you got to get home now, too. Got to go through I guess it's not as bad traffic as before, but it's dark. So may God go with you. Be safe as you drive. And just know there's a power out there that can help you live a life of full power. Can I pray for you before we go? Okay. Our Father in heaven, Lord, what a what a message you have for us. What a truth. What amazing principles you've given to us. You tell us how we can live, how we can enjoy life in spite of the negativity, and we can still have joy and health and happiness and love and all those good things. So, Lord, I pray for everyone here. Help us to understand, help us to feel your work in our hearts, and help us to feel the energy and to live truly that life of full power that you've called us to. I thank you, dear Lord, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. May God bless you all.
Thank you, Ernest, for your inspiring and practical conclusion for your Full Power series. And I also want to express my deep appreciation to you for the time and energy he invested in being with us this weekend. Your presence and dedication have been a true gift for our community. We hope you leave tonight with stronger motivation and also tools, I think, to help you break free from unhealthy patterns and move toward the life God designed you to live. A life of strength, balance, joy, and full power. Have a wonderful night, and may you go forward living your life at full power. Thank you.